All right, welcome everyone. So let's jump right in. We're going to be talking about vidcasting, content creation, growing a following, why we'd want to do this, and how we do it. So let's start with Jared. Why do a vidcast in the first place as opposed to a podcast? Tell us about what it is and why you do it.
Oh man, that is a loaded question to start off with. Yeah, no, I needed a new addiction, and gaming just wasn't doing it for me anymore. I needed that pop, right, for the excitement. There's a little bit of that actually. I know I was just joking a little bit there, but there's a little something to it, interacting with people and getting to talk to people and be real with them. So I love live streaming. I love communicating with people, and building a channel does many things. It challenges me to go outside my comfort zone, to try new things, and also introduces me to a whole new world of people and possibilities. And it helps grow a brand, right? So like all of those things encapsulated together. That's why I do it, is to do all those things.
Why do vidcasting, specifically as opposed to podcasting or other sort of digital media? Tell us about what it is you do and why you do it.
Gotcha. So I do vidcasting because my primary platform or medium is Twitch, and that's obviously a lot of video. But I primarily do tabletop shows. And while I have considered doing podcasts, and I probably will be working on some with some other folks pretty soon with some collaboration, I really like vidcasting it because you can get facial expressions on Twitch. And there's a lot of acting that happens with your facial expressions, your gestures, and things like that get lost with just purely audio podcasts. So that's one of the biggest reasons that I like to do the video. And then what I do, as I mentioned, tabletop streams. Currently, we're running 7 shows a week this season. Tuesday through Saturday, we just do 2 shows on Friday and Saturday, basically. If anybody's interested in looking any of that stuff up, there's my link tree in chat. It's got links to my Twitter and YouTube and Twitch and all that stuff in there. But yeah, I really like vidcasting for that reason, and a lot of what Jared already touched on, the needing a new addiction for something. On those same lines, I have ADHD, and there's so much that you have to multitask with for streaming, especially tabletop streaming, where you're running a game and running the stream and working with a cast, that it just it works for the way my brain works really well.
Tell us more about your channel or the type of content and your experience and what got you into this.
Sure. So my channel is it's twitch.tv/RAVVYN, and we call the channel the Black Feather Guild. That's the community that I've built up there. And yeah, as I mentioned, we do tabletop shows running a number of different systems. Primarily my own system. I do have a second edition of that coming out either at the end of this month or the beginning of next month, depending on a couple of production items. I'll throw that into chat as well if you're interested. So we run that, which is a D20 system, and we also run a couple other ones like Zweihander, which I also highly recommend, Monster of the Week, and there's one more that we were running recently. The old Star Wars Saga Edition RPG we're running this season. But yeah, we do primarily tabletop campaigns. They're a lot of fun. We've got a big focus on LGBTQ+ representation and inclusion, specifically trans and non-binary representation. So that's a big part of what we do, and we just tell really interesting stories with a good dose of drama and comedy and good portions of both.
I'm kind of curious when you during your tabletop gaming and you guys are kind of acting things out. When you cast fireball at the darkness, do you like actually do like the motions there?
Depends on the person, really. Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes we'll mime out, what we're doing with our hand gestures and things. But we do a lot of theater of the mind, so a lot of times it's more of a painting a word picture, if you will. So
Yeah.
we'll get really descriptive with what exactly we're doing. Most of us do voices as well for our characters, and um, we really get into the character headspaces. There are tears during intense emotional moments where we're acting as the character, and the character's upset, so we're crying. And on the flip side of that, we're also laughing our butts off a lot.
I love that you said that. I actually watched the IT crowd the other day, their D&D edition. That was funny. But so
I don't
what
know.
I right when I the channel that I run, which is Resident 164, I play lots of different things. I try to really be not just super trendy, though. My primary game is super trendy, which is awkward sometimes. Right, Call of Duty. Right, because when I write, and I kill people in writing, it's just not as satisfying when you kill people in the virtual world. So I'm a murderer, right? I murder people for fun, but I also play games like NCAA 14. GSU is actually my team on that. I started streaming them that they sent me some gear, so I ended up with some GSU like hat and sweatshirt and sweatpants, so I could look like a coach if I was gonna play NCAA 14 with their team, which is kind of fun. But so I stream a bunch of different games and things, but it's kind of ironic because I am more often than not a support character in many other much larger channels where I come in and I'm their fourth person for Call of Duty, partially because everybody has such big egos in that game that they just need that guy who doesn't have an ego, who's like, okay, let's go with the flow, and then when you guys run in and die, let me go back and buy you guys and bring you back to life. I'm that guy. They call me the anchor. I have the lowest KD, but I also live the longest and take the least damage. So that's my role in streaming more often than not. But we're in the process of branching out, doing a lot more instructional stuff, doing a lot more, trying to expand, because that's one of the funnest parts about doing a channel is you get to kind of experiment. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. It's gone. If it does work, awesome. Then you can start working on it. And that's what I loved. I think I was on a panel 2 years ago with Steven, and he's genius, by the way. I love working with Steven and looking up his stuff.
Thank you. The kind of content I create is I run a YouTube channel, and we also post it on Facebook, I guess different platforms. But we're called the Gashler family. That's my last name. And we create whatever I feel like at the time. We've had over 16 million views. We create music videos. I guess my passion is musical theater, so that's turned into videos as well as filmmaking. We also occasionally do fan films, such as Nintendo fan films. We have done, I guess, technically family vlogging, but it's more kind of like short films. For example, like the time we turned our house into a Zelda dungeon and all the fun stuff we did with that. Or we made kind of a little musical of the birth of my latest child and turned that into a little rock opera. So that was kind of fun. So that's the kind of stuff I do.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just realized I forgot to mention too. Other content that I do. My content's actually moving. It's still going to be at the same place, but you're also going to be able to catch it on the Fantasy Network starting in about a week. So all of the not the live streams, but the past live streams that I've done that are now essentially vidcasts are going to go over to the Fantasy Network, where you can watch them there too, which is going to be really cool. I forgot to mention that.
Nice. My next question is, I want to talk about the pros and the cons, the perks and the challenges. What has benefited you from doing vidcasting, and what have been some of the challenges and drawbacks?
Well, that's what a great question. One of the pros is definitely getting to be on panels with amazing people like Steven and Ravyn. Man, in learning, so always learning new things and pushing the boundaries. I loved it when last time we worked together, Steven was like, yeah, we did the green screen in the laundry room and the space was like, just a couple of feet and we had to film like doing a flip. And I'm like, I never thought of trying that before. let me push the envelope and see if I can. And I couldn't, but it's okay. It was cool. It's getting to explore beyond and push beyond. It's funny because 6 years ago, I would call it a hardcore introvert, where I wasn't around people. I didn't like talking to people, being in front of I could never have done this, right? And I slowly started moving into things, started being around groups and being around people, exploring, learning. And then next thing you know, one of the perks was being comfortable in front of a camera, being comfortable talking to people, which was huge. But that's also the drawback. There's after I'm done with a conference, after I'm done with a live stream, I'm exhausted. I'm so tired. Or planning a whole project or working on big tasks, it takes up a lot more time, a lot more detail. With Twitch, you have to stream on a regular basis. You have to schedule. It's a job. So you have to be there. You have to show up. Even if you're not feeling great, you got to show up. It's not just, hey, let's maybe I'll think, no, I'm not going to do it tonight. Oh, I am going to do it tonight. Because then you don't get regular streamers. The big streamers don't pick me up. They don't want me to be around because they can't depend on me. So there's that exhausting element. And I have 5 kids and they're in their teen years right now. So they don't want me to be around, but they do want me to be around, especially if I have money. So there's those pros and cons. There's far more pros than cons, thankfully.
I would definitely agree with that. Pros for me, when I first got into doing it full time, I'd already been doing it as a hobby for a little bit, just for fun. And then I ran into a unique situation where the company that I was working for had basically folded. And so I found myself without a job. And because of the weird way that the market was for the job market, despite my best efforts, I could not get picked up by a company. Oddly enough, because this sounds really weird, but pretty much everybody said, oh, well, you're overqualified for this job. I'm like, cool, I still need a job. So kind of hitting brick wall after brick wall with that. I was like, well, I've been streaming. I know how to do that. I've started a number of businesses on my own before. Let's give this a shot. So a big pro for me is it gave me a job. And I found out that it's absolutely wonderfully suited for me. Everything I've done experience-wise up to that point is just like, oh, yeah, I can pull all of my past experience into this job, not just bits and pieces. It all builds into it. And that was really cool. So that's a big pro for me. Also, I mentioned having ADHD, and this job really suits that well because I can focus on a lot of different things at one time. And on the flip side, when I have a project that requires a lot of attention, I kind of just, as soon as I start hyper focusing on it, I'm like, okay, we're getting this project done today. So it helps with the way my brain works because I'm able to work that into what I do. Other big pros are I get to work with a lot of amazing people. I have a cast of generally around 20 to 30 people per season, which our seasons are 4 months long. So I get to work with amazing people. I've had people at my table. In one game, I had somebody from Poland, the UK, a couple of US people, somebody that was in Japan, and somebody that was in Australia at the same time. So I've met people from all around the world that are I would now consider friends. We've been at the tables together enough and talked enough outside of games that we've actually developed genuine friendships. and it's just been fantastic. And I'd say one of the biggest pros for me with tabletop in particular and what we do, especially right now during pandemic and everybody needing distractions and things like that, is we get to bring a lot of joy and laughter to people who really need it, and we're not afraid to touch on mental health things as well. So we're very much about recognizing that those things are there, showing people like tabletop isn't a replacement for therapy, but it can sure help as a supplement. And it's pretty cool. Drawbacks are you have to be consistent. That is the flip side of ADHD is what is time. So you have to really be careful to be disciplined and set yourself reminders and really force yourself into getting the habit of I stream at this time, these days, this is when it happens. And that can be really difficult if you're not used to that. And then, it's really easy to burn out if you're not careful and you don't pace yourself, because even as an extrovert, I love being around people. I love being, in the middle of things. And at the risk of sounding a little vain, I like being the center of attention a lot of the time. It's a lot of fun. But when you're in front of a camera, you're always on. And that can be more draining than you realize, because it's in the moment you don't really realize it. But as soon as you turn the camera off, it's just, this big wave that hits you and you're like, oh, I am so drained. So you have to be careful with that. I would agree that's a downside. And I'll stop talking because I've been rambling now.
From my experience, some of the perks are there is and can be money in it. When things are going viral, we've had consistently over 1,000 a month. That was great. When things are not going great, now it's more like $10 a month. So it's like all over the place. And so that's also a con of it. If you are depending on it for income, YouTube's algorithms and Facebook algorithms and so many things are just totally volatile. For example, the start of 2020, they totally changed their algorithm as far as how they deal with children's entertainment. And some of our best performing videos classified as children's entertainment. And suddenly we lost all of our advertising revenue for that, and things just plummeted. And now we're to the point where we're losing subscribers faster than we gain them. And that happens to a ton of YouTubers from my knowledge. It's kind of a Ponzi scheme, to be honest. There's a reason why some of the big shots are begging and doing everything in their power to constantly grow subscribers. Because even if they're making millions upon millions of views and getting millions of subscribers, people unsubscribe as fast as they subscribe, because every time something is published, they get it on their phone and they're like, I don't want to see that anymore. And so that's something they have to deal with. And if they gain 10 million subscribers in a year, but lose 11 million, then it doesn't matter how many millions and millions of views they're getting. YouTube will take all of that money and not share any with them, because you have to gain 1,000 subscribers every single year or you don't make any money. And so again, it's vicious in that regard, and it's hard to compete, and it's extremely volatile. But again, on the perks, it is possible to make money. I've done it. And I think the main perk though is it's fun. It's fun to have people you've never seen before say, "Hey, I saw your video," and it's just, yeah, as Ravyn said, it's if you're an egotist, it's very gratifying of your pride. But most of all, it's just a fun thing to do.
Well, just to add on to that really quick, I just want to mention it's cool when you have this as a part of a dual threat. So like when I started becoming more active in the writing community, when I had my books published out there and started teaching classes, and then I started Twitch streaming, I started getting more out there visually in front of people. Suddenly, as new projects came up, people are like, what's different between all these authors? Oh, wow, Jared actually has this stream going. He has this going on. It makes you like gives you a lot of attention and makes you kind of like a dual threat when it comes to expanding or working on projects.
Yeah, I wanted to. You brought up something good there. I wanted to mention with the income part of it. Um, Absolutely, I would say I do this as a full-time job. I do not recommend it as a full-time job. Um, it takes a long time to build it up. I make about $3 an hour right now, and I've been doing it a year and a half. So if you're looking to get into it for the money, you can make a lot of money, but there's a lot of factors that play into that. And in regards to the volatility, I would say for anybody that's wanting to get into it and wanting to do it as a full-time or part-time job, build a community. That's where your consistent income is going to come from. Things like Patreon and subscriber-specific content will help a lot. Because advertising revenue will go up and down. Twitch donations will go way up and down. But if you can get patrons on Patreon and get solid community members who just really enjoy what you do and they're there to support you, you can get more predictable income. It just takes a really long time to build that up.
Yeah, I agree about the benefits. Sometimes it's very elusive, as has been said. You can have thousands of subscribers and think that gives you influence, but it doesn't necessarily at all. It doesn't matter like how popular one video or thing may be. You may post the next thing and then it's cricket chirps. And again, there's thousands of subscribers out there theoretically, but it can be just as hard to push content sometimes. It's very relative. And again, you're very much at the mercy of these big networks such as YouTube or Facebook or Twitch or whatever it is. And therefore, you definitely don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. And as has been said, it's great to have multiple revenue sources such as Patreon. Let's talk a little bit more about that. How do you monetize, or if you don't monetize, how do you at least make this worth your while?
Oh, so I blackmail my subscribers, and it's highly effective. You'd be surprised how much you can make off that. No, so great question. So it's kind of fun the way that I go about it, and that's sure I drive Twitch and I get those subscribers. I haven't been as successful on YouTube because they do shift around a lot. Like that's all my favorite YouTubers run into the exact same thing that Steven. They all hit that, get that in the switch that can flip at any moment. So what I do more often than not, it's because I do that. I'm able to promote my books that sell, fairly well. My short stories that sell really well. I'm able to have the platform and audience to promote those things. And kind of like I mentioned before, I have bigger opportunities to not just teach at a conference, but when I get to be with the Utah Arts Council, because I do multiple things and they're looking for something different, then suddenly I get to go be a part of a program or a piece that either pays me money directly, like I'm on the Utah Artist Teaching roster. So I get paid to go to a school to talk to kids about writing books and streaming video games. That's really cool. But if I had just written the book, I would be like all the other authors. And it would be so tough to get onto that artist teaching roster. So it's becoming utilizing the dual threat. It's like you said, not putting all your eggs into one basket, but each basket gives me just a little bit enough to survive and exist in this world and support those teenagers, which is never quite enough.
Yeah, I would definitely echo a lot of that. Streaming is my primary source of income right now, but it's not all I do. And again, anybody that's looking to do this as a job, know that you are going to work your absolute butt off. So I stream full time and do other stuff. So I'm also a consultant. I offer marketing, administrative, and creative consulting for a lot of different people. I've helped them build up their own streams, do marketing, because that's my background. I also do art. One of the biggest pros for starting all of this is, I got into streaming with zero budget, and I saw all these other tabletop channels, and they have really fancy artwork for all their shows and these really nice overlays, and I'm like, I can't hire anybody to do that. So I had to learn how to do that myself. And I found out, hey, I'm pretty good at this. I've got a knack for it, and it's really fun. So now I offer commissions, and that's another source of income. And because I use all my own art in my streams, when somebody says, "Oh, what's your stuff look like?" I'm like, "Go check out my channel. All that's me." And they go, "Oh, that overlay is really cool. I want something like that." I'm like, "Cool, I can do that because I did that one." So it helps promote that. And then, obviously I've written a tabletop system, because I got into streaming and I started doing all of these different games, and I found that I wasn't really satisfied with any of the systems that I play. I enjoy them all, but I'm like, all of them are missing a little something, or it's too much of this or that. And so I was like, I want something different. So I made my own, and now I run currently 2 shows a week on that system. One of them is our longest running and most popular show, and that helps me promote it. There's definitely a lot of benefits to that, and you can monetize it by diversifying what you do, and spreading your content over multiple platforms, and also letting your main platform promote all those other things.
Yeah, for us, as I said, we have been able to monetize on YouTube, and that's been great at times. Right now, it's just a little hobby income, so it's nothing we can depend on. We haven't been able to break into Facebook as far as monetization. Again, they all have their thresholds. Like, you have to have so many views within a certain period. You have to have so many followers or subscribers, and it's hard. And we can talk about how we do that. Patreon was recommended to us. A lot of people said, "Oh, you've got so many subscribers and views. You'll build a Patreon in no time." Well, I said what I said before about, like, things don't necessarily translate as well as you would hope they do, because all of our Patreon supporters, we just got by inviting friends and family. It just, you hope these things will just naturally cross-pollinate and things will just grow, but it's never that easy. So Patreon does help. We haven't had a lot of success with that either. So honestly, right now it's just hobby for us, but we still enjoy it, and it's unclear to us what the future will be. So again, it is possible, but it's difficult. Let's talk about what you do to make engaging content and, relatedly, grow a following. How do you do it?
Man, that's the $24 million question right there. If I had the golden ticket to to have all the followers and all the right content, whew, boy, I would be flying the golden jet. We'd probably have all of us in there. No, so the way that I make it engaging is, first of all, you got to be yourself. I mean, it's funny because I'm not naturally as boisterous or conversational, but at the same time, it's my personality. I let it be me. I don't try to mimic somebody else. I want, when somebody comes to my channel, when I participate on a team, I want them to know that they're getting me. I'm that guy. If they come to a conference and meet me, I'm the same guy, right? I get the same conversation, the same kind of energy. So, having be myself, which is great, but also trying to be unique. And that's the toughest part, is to stand out and be unique. Because there's been some times where I've had some great success, streaming some really old video games. Matter of fact, I grew up on these games, Space Quest and Heroes Quest, where they were typing games. Like, I mean, there was video to it, but you still had to type directions. And I decided to do something fun. So I have my teenage son, my oldest one, kind of like commenting as I was playing, because he was not used to that kind of interface at all, which was amazing. The first one took off. Everybody thought it was hilarious because, okay, so there was a lot of mockery, a lot of misspellings that he was calling me out since I'm an author, which was great. But then the very next time we did it, just like, Steven, it's like nobody showed up. Like, nobody, they're like, "Oh, you're doing that again." So it can be really tricky and really tough, but you got to try things and constantly be kind of experimenting to try and get the audience engaged and make it friendly, and talk to them whenever you get a chance. And that's really the key. You want to try and connect with them so that they feel a personal connection. That's how, like, when I sell books at a conference, that's when I sell the books that, and I know they're going to come back and buy another book or other short stories. It's when you make that personal connection, which is tough when you want to have 1 million subscribers. You can't have a personal connection with 1 million, but you try to have as many as you can because they'll go out and champion you also. They'll go out and brag to their friends. They'll talk to them. I get to hang out with so-and-so, we chat all the time, kind of fun stuff. So it's trying to experiment all the time. It's trying to build as many personal connections as I can to try and keep them engaged and coming back. That's how I do it.
Yeah, interaction is definitely pretty key there. So over on my channel, we promote a lot of interaction through donation rewards. So with the tabletop games, and we've tried a lot of stuff. And before I forget, something else I was going to mention. When you do try different things, humans are really great at recognizing patterns that aren't there. So if you try something different, and you've got one stream that does really well, and then the next week it doesn't do that great, there's a lot of different factors for why that second week you might not have had a big turnout. So the really important thing to remember is to try things for rather than a week or two. You've got to give it like a month or two, and then you can really look at your data, the empirical numbers that show you how many minutes were watched, how many unique viewers there were, how many people interacted with your chat during those streams, and you can really track a legitimate pattern and see, okay, yeah, this isn't working, or no, it is. We just had a weird dip that we can't really explain right here. So that's something important to watch as well. Yeah, definitely don't be afraid to try new stuff. We're always trying something a little bit different every stream or every season on my channel. But I mentioned rewarding donations with interaction. So for tabletop games, one of the really cool things you can do is you can give players buffs and advantages and things like that. So right now, our current model, for $2, you can throw a D6 at the cast or the GM. So it just kind of goes into a pool, and then they can grab from that to add a D6 to any of their rolls to give themselves a better chance at succeeding. We also do advantage and disadvantage for $8 and $10. And that just means you roll twice, and for advantage, you take the better of the two results, and disadvantage, you take the worse of the two results. We do $15 for 3 auto crits, so you automatically critical success. And then one of the coolest things that we do is the most expensive. But if somebody throws $25 at the stream, they can give an asset to the cast or a challenge for the GM. And the asset is usually like a single-use item or a situational bonus that makes the game easier, whereas a challenge is the GM can throw in an environmental hazard or an extra encounter or a situational thing that makes it harder. So audience can actually increase or decrease the difficulty for the cast members by doing that. And so that's a great way to get people engaged, get them really interested in what's going on, because they do have some influence on the show while not taking agency away from the players, which is also important that stays the same, because if you start losing agency as a player, you get into some really bad situations with tabletop games. So there's that, but you can also do things on Twitch like channel points, where you can do non-monetary bonuses or interactions that are rewards for just people sitting there and watching and interacting. So you get those channel points the longer you watch, and you can set up rewards to redeem those points. We do that by there's one where you can swap players for 5 minutes, so they play each other's characters, or the GM will play a character and that player will GM for 5 minutes. And of course, we have the understanding beforehand that we're not going to do anything important during that 5 minutes. And then there's another one where you can make a player rhyme for 3 minutes. So everything they say has to rhyme for 3 minutes. Stuff like that. It's fun, and yeah, the interaction is very important. for building a following that stays around.
When we were trying to grow a channel originally, it started off as just kind of a hobby experiment. We'd written all this musical theater, my wife and I, and we thought, well, why don't we just turn it into music videos? And at the time, the latest algorithm change was that you got to release a whole lot of content on YouTube. And ideally every single day. With what we were doing, that wasn't practical, but we stuck to every single week at least. And for about a year, it was crickets chirping. It was us and our friends and our parents watching our videos. Then I talked to a pretty established YouTuber, and he recommended, instead of just doing our own stuff, we do covers. And he recommended, you guys have cute kids, use your kids. So we took those two things to heart, and we did a video, and it was crickets chirping for months after the fact. But then suddenly it did catch hold and it went viral. And we found that there's really only two factors you need to go viral. One, you need a very engaging thumbnail. In other words, a high click-through rate. If people see it and they click it, and then you have to keep them. You need a high engagement rate. So if you have a good thumbnail and you can get people watching your video instead of just clicking back, your video will go viral. Again, it's very hard and it's very unpredictable, but that at least is the formula. And the things we've had the best success with are, again, kind of this middle ground. If you just do things that are popular and you're not passionate about, you're not going to get anywhere. But if you just do your own thing that people aren't searching for, once again, you're not going to get anywhere. So if you can marry the two, do a subject that people are looking and searching for that targets keywords, and you can put your passion, your energy, good production quality into it, and you have a great thumbnail, then again, you have a good candidate for something that could have a lot of engagements, go viral, and make you some money. And so our best performing videos are our Nintendo fan films. There's more tricks you can do, such as non-linear storytelling. Start with a little attention grabber and then maybe back up. You can change the camera angle a lot just to keep things engaging. Usually a lot of the videos have a pretty fast cut rate, exciting music, etc. But as far as the gimmicks, they really are secondary to just, again, doing some market research, targeting something that people are actually looking for, and then putting your passion and heart into it and just making it the best thing you do. And if you do that, it's going to show, and people are going to be engaged. Maybe one more question. How can we get started? Or what advice do you have out there for people who are new to this and don't know where to start?
Oh, yeah. So my advice is what I did is I started by stalking Steven. Now, he's got a bush right in front of the front window. If you hide behind, you can see all the screens he uses and the camera tricks. Now, all the tools are available. That was a little creepy, sorry. So all the tools are available out there. And what I love is so many people have made videos on either reviews on different tools so that you don't go out and buy, a lot of software that you're not going to use. They'll give, there's some great advice on lighting, on soundproofing, on microphone. There's a lot of great advice already out there. Do your research. Like Steven was saying, when you do your research, both for marketing, do your research when it comes to getting the right equipment. And decide, really, I think what's great is kind of decide how far you want to start off with. Give yourself a little bit of a budget and set your expectations appropriately. That's kind of what I'd say. If you're going to invest a little bit, obviously your chances of going big will probably kind of mimic some of the research that you do, the equipment you invest in. You see those, you kind of, people can see through that when you're using really cheap stuff all over the place. So just do your research. That's what I'd recommend.
Yeah, and I'd say just like if you want to be a writer, you need to go read a bunch of books. If you want to, if you want to be an artist, you need to look at a lot of different art styles. Same way with streaming and vidcasting. If you want to be a really good streamer, go watch a lot of different streams. See what works for people, what doesn't, what you like and what you don't like. There were a couple of large tabletop streaming channels that I watched a lot of before I dived into it. And I was like, I really like these elements of what they do. And then there were some elements like, I really don't like those elements. So I watched a lot of that. And then I took the parts that I liked and I put them together, and then I put my own stuff into it. And yeah, like I've said, I'm going to sound like a broken record at this point. It's a slow process. So I've very rarely ever had any of my streams or videos just, shoot off like a rocket, with tons of people. But what I have seen is a very consistent and steady gradual growth, which sounds really boring because it is, but it's also what you want. Because if you get, a ton of new followers or a ton of new subscriptions, off of one thing that you do that kind of goes viral, that's great. It gets you out there. But it's, just like a quickly burning fire. It's going to use up all that resource real quick and sort of die out. So the slow build is really what's going to help you out in the long run. And like I said, I've been doing this for about 1.5 years full time. And I went from, having an average of 3 people per stream, simultaneous viewers per stream, to right now I'm at about an 8. And when I say simultaneous viewers per stream, that means at any given time, there are that many people watching. So for like a 3-hour stream, I might have 50 to 100 unique viewers, but they're not sticking around for the whole 3 hours usually. And that's pretty normal for Twitch. Because stream consumers, viewers, we all have the attention span of a goldfish. We're hopping around everywhere. So that's normal. It sounds very weird if you're coming from somewhere like YouTube, where it's all about the videos that are already out there, and people watching them all the way through. It's live streaming versus video on demand are very different. I will say that. But I forgot what my point was because I started rambling, but slow growth is good.
All right, let's open up to questions now, if there are any.
Yes, there are. Our first question comes from Rainer09. How can you use vidcasting if you are geared towards mindfulness, growth through self-compassion, and mental health?
Ooh, that's a great question. I'll hop in there on that one, because that's a large part of what we do on my channel. So mindfulness, growth through self-compassion, and mental health. Those are all great things that you can definitely utilize vidcasting for. I have seen several. I've seen several channels on Twitch that are just they're talk shows with where the host is a psychologist or a therapist, and they discuss those issues. It's not therapy, like it's not a therapy session with that person, but they bring things up. They talk about those topics. They give out resources. They clarify certain things and answer some questions, and then we'll usually recommend resources or people for people to go look at afterwards. But what we do on my channel for mindfulness and compassion and mental health, we touch on that quite a bit. We address a lot of mental health issues through story. A lot of the folks in my community have sort of found each other through shared mental health issues that we deal with. I've mentioned I have ADHD, which is a whole bunch of different challenges in day to day. I also have PTSD, which brings up a lot of challenges, namely anxiety and depression. And we touch on a lot of that through the characters in the story, and show kind of how these characters deal with it poorly or well. And then through that, we also have the community, the Discord, where we have channels just about mental health, or heavy topics, or needing to talk about mindfulness issues or compassion issues, or self-care, things like that. And none of those are required. They're in a separate section because we recognize that not everybody has the to use the expression, not everybody has the spoons to deal with that all the time. But we have those sections for when people do have that energy or that those personal resources where I could talk about that with you today. So you can absolutely use vidcasting to talk about those different things. You have to be careful with it, and boundaries are important, and it's very important to make sure that everybody recognizes, unless you are a licensed therapist, that you're not, and that this isn't a replacement for therapy. This isn't a replacement for the things that we all need to do to take care of our mental health, but it is here as a help. So yeah, you can definitely do that.
One of the things that I would suggest is kind of like a different angle on it is sometimes instead of going straight at it is to, in tabletop gaming, it's a great platform because I referenced the IT crowd, their episode. In that, it showed one of the characters actually go through a therapy moment in the game, in his real life. And sometimes it's just not necessarily pointing straight at somebody and saying, this is the kind of mindfulness and therapy you need. It could be, just addressing one so people can mentally connect with a scenario to help them feel understood more, or other pieces like that as well. So it doesn't necessarily need to be like straight at somebody, like, hey, I'm doing, addressing mental health right now. It could be, this is how I'm dealing with this scenario, and this is how my friend's dealing with this scenario, and we're all going to work through it together and just play games and enjoy it and talk through it. So it could be kind of like a roundabout so they can feel included and so they can understand and kind of do their own kind of mental therapy with it.
Absolutely. It's a lot of that representation matters in a lot of different things. So seeing a character or a person talking about, this character or me as a player, I'm dealing with anxiety. Somebody who also has anxiety goes, oh, hey, I'm not alone. And I just one more thing I wanted to add, because I forgot to mention, if you do talk about mental health topics and things like that, it's always important to have safety tools at your table for tabletop games. But especially if you're dealing with that, definitely utilize those.
Let's see if we can squeeze in one more question.
All right. We have one question from N Mills. How much benefit have you had from inviting live guests onto your shows?
That's a great question. And Ravyn probably has more stories than I've had some really fun guests come on my show. I've actually been the recipient where I was invited, even though I'm not like the biggest, I'm not like some huge name, but like I help benefit other channels by being a part of theirs. But whenever I get somebody on who's, who's bigger, who's a little bit more famous, they're watching my stream, obviously. But it's tough because a lot of times they're there to see that person in that instance. And unless, they feel connected to your channel right then they might not stick with you. I mean, it could give you a boost, but I don't know if it's a long-term boost. I haven't had that experience, but maybe Ravyn can speak more to it than I can.
Yeah, that's a huge part of what I do, because I mentioned having a cast of 20 to 30 people in any given season. And for tabletop Twitch, that's a lot of what we do is we guest on other people's channels, and we have other people on our channels because you need a full party to run the game. Excuse me. And a lot of us can't afford to pay our players because we're not even paying ourselves enough yet. And so that's a large part of what we do is it's like, hey, I'll have you on my channel. I'll come guest on your channel. And yeah, the people that are there to see you when you go guest on somebody else's channel, a lot of times some of them will follow the channel that you're on because they see something else that they like, and vice versa. So yeah, having live guests is great, but also it brings a lot to your channel because you've got this new personality, this new perspective. They've got their own area of expertise. I think a lot of streaming works best when you do collaborate regularly, especially tabletop, because you have to. It's collaborative storytelling. But yeah, there's a lot of benefits to having guests and having other people on your channel and being able to collaborate like that.
Okay, I think we're out of time. Thank you, everybody. Maybe just like in one sentence, remind everybody where they can follow you and learn more.
Ravyn, I'll let you go first.
Okay. So I'm Ravyn. My brand is the Ravyn Evermore. That's my brand for everything that I do. I do tabletop design. I'm a professional GM. I stream, voice acting, art. I do a lot of stuff. My link tree's there in chat. It's if you're watching on YouTube and don't have access to the chat, it's linktr.ee/VRAVVYN, and that's got links to my Twitch, Twitter, all of that stuff's right in there.
Perfect. I'm Jared Quan. You can reach me at jaredquan.com. I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. All my links spawn from there. I just want to apologize one more time for getting kind of creepy in the middle. I don't stalk. I don't condone stalking. Don't do it unless you do it through YouTube and you're watching religiously. That's the only kind of stalking I condone.
I thought the creepiness was the best part, Jared. Like Jared, you can see I'm Stephen Gashler. You can find me at stephengashler.com, and our YouTube channel is the Gashler Family if you want to look it up. Thank you guys.